Let's move south.
It's cold, Basil. It's cold. Antarctica, go burn. It's a snowstorm. Antarctica. Ice scientists are penguins. Antarctica, they're opening the abyss.
Geoengineering.
Ice scientists are penguins, Guns.
Mm-hmm. This is news.sky.com. Scientists propose controversial plan to refreeze North and South poles by spraying sulfur dioxide into atmosphere.
Yay! Another conspiracy theory that is proven to not be a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of this have been public, but yeah, they still insist that such ideas are conspiratorial thinking, which is just wild to me.
Yeah.
It says here, scientists have outlined a controversial plan to refreeze the North and South poles. And
refreeze, as if it's not frozen right now.
Yeah, no, it's climate change, buddy. Come on, didn't you hear about the Doomsday Glacier melting? End of the world.
Completely froze. Last time I checked, Antarctica and the Arctic are still frozen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what they want you to think. They say high-flying jets could spray microscopic aerosol particles into the atmosphere to reflect sunlight and cool the melting ice caps. Around 175,000 flights a year would be needed, releasing millions of tons of carbon dioxide.
Yeah, we'll fight climate change by flying 175,000 planes over the poles to block the sunlight.
Yeah, just releasing all that carbon dioxide, which aren't we trying to get to carbon neutral? Or is that a different thing? I'm not a scientist. I don't know what I'm talking about, but But a former UK chief scientist backed the plans, telling Sky News that polar warming is now critical and refreezing the ice could hold back the rise in global sea levels. The new study is led by Wake Smith from Yale University in the United States. He's so woke that his name is Wake.
He's Wake. Yeah.
Wake
What's the past?
Smith.
What's the past tense of woke? Wake.
Wake. Wake Smith. I mean, kind of a cool name, but also why? Why Wake Smith? From Yale University, home of the Skull and Bones. He warned the plans. Yep, he warned the plans would treat an important symptom of climate change, not the cause. Quote: "It's aspirin."
Yeah, no kidding.
Not penicillin. It's not a substitute for decarbonization, he said. Yeah, because we're putting more carbon into the air. But,
it's not going to... Here, listen up, okay? It's a really good plan. We're going to spray chemtrails over the poles. We're going to need to fly almost 200,000 planes to do it. That'll be pumping even more carbon into the air, making the problem worse. But it's a cool idea, and we're scientists. What are we supposed to not have cool ideas? It's not only aspirin and not penicillin. Not only is it not a cure, it's more like I don't even know. Poison? It's like smoking a cigarette. Well, it'll relax you, but it'll give you cancer.
Sure. Yeah, you're right. Before we continue with the article, let me just play this clip from Stephen Colbert. Super woke, right? Everybody knows Colbert was like this woke talking head.
He's the prince. He's the prince of the woke.
Of late night woke or whatever. This clip is from 2013 with David Keith, who I believe is a Harvard professor or something like that. He wrote a book called A Case for Climate Engineering. And it does two things. We played this clip before, so it's nothing new for those of you who've been around for a while. It's just a good reminder about what's been out there. And it was just I don't know, I felt very fond of those days when Colbert would question the government, Anyway, here's the clip from 2013 with Stephen Colbert with David Keith talking about geoengineering.
You could actually spray sulfuric acid in the stratosphere 20 kilometers over our head and use that to stop the planet warming up in a ugly tech fix.
You can spray something into the atmosphere to change.
Spray pollution into the atmosphere to stop it warming.
How do you do this?
You'd start with a fleet of modified business jets and say 20,000 tons of sulfuric acid into the stratosphere every year. And each year you have to put a little more. And this doesn't, in the long run, mean that you can forget about cutting emissions. We will need to rein in.
No, we'll get to it eventually. But in the meantime, we're shrouding the earth in sulfuric acid.
So people are terrified about talking about this because they're scared that it will prevent us cutting emissions.
Right, and also that it's sulfuric acid.
We put 50 million tons of sulfuric acid in the air now as pollution, and it kills 1 million people a year worldwide.
Okay, but it'll be better if we put more in.
We're talking about 1% of that.
1% more, we're just killing 10,000 more people.
You can do math.
What happens to the sulfuric acid after it's sprayed? Does it just stay up there?
No, it rains down, but it's a tiny addition to what we're already doing.
Is there any possible way this could come back to bite us in the end?
It actually turns out to be an old idea. This was known since President Johnson.
You ever look at those planes up there? They have contrails behind them. Maybe all those planes with the contrails, maybe they're actually spraying chemicals into the atmosphere right now, and Uncle Sam isn't telling us.
Seems extremely unlikely.
That the United States is not telling something to its citizens? That seems extremely likely to me. Read the newspaper.
Wow.
Yeah.
Colbert pushing back against the government. I know, different time.
Different time.
Yeah. All right, so back to the article here. Under the plan, a fleet of 125 military air-to-air refueling tankers would release a cloud of microscopic sulfur dioxide particles at an altitude of 43,000 feet and latitude of 60 degrees in both hemispheres, roughly equivalent to the Shetland Islands in the north and the Falklands in the south. The particles would slowly drift towards the poles on high altitude winds, slightly shading the Earth's surface beneath. Just over 13 metric tons of particles released in the spring and summer would be enough to cool the polar regions by 2 degrees Celsius, with more moderate cooling at mid-latitudes, according to the research published in the scientific journal Environmental Research Communications. The plan is controversial, not least because the large number of flights, equivalent to more than 2 days of global air traffic in 2021, would release greenhouse gases into the upper atmosphere where they are more damaging. Other scientists are also cautious about unleashing solar shading because it could have unintended consequences, such as reducing crop yields. A plan to release particles from a balloon in northern Sweden last year was abandoned after protests from environmentalists. A large-scale release program would need international agreement. But the researchers argue only 1% of the human population lives in the target deployment zone. And
that is way too high of a number.
I was going to say 1% of 8 billion.
1% of the entire human population lives in Antarctica. Did they just admit to secret Nazi bases and hidden civilizations in Antarctica? Because that is a lot of people.
That is, I'm just doing the math now. If my math is not mistaken,
8 million people.
80 million. I'm sorry, hold on. Did I do this wrong?
I think it's 8 million.
8 billion. That's 9 zeros, right? Times 0.01. That's 1%. Yeah, it's 80 million.
That's 80 million people living in Antarctica.
Well, 40 million each, so we're talking California-sized populations at the poles. Hollow Earth. That's hilarious. Creatures living in the Hollow Earth.
Yeah.
Let's see. If the risk-benefit equation were to pay off anywhere, it would be at the poles, said Mr. Wake Smith. Quote, any intentional turning of the global thermostat would be of common interest to all of humanity. Spoken like a true lizard person, non-human. The poles are warming several times faster than the global average, with record-breaking heat waves reported in both the Arctic and Antarctic earlier this year. If the vast Greenland and West Antarctic ice sheets reach a tipping point, now seen as likely on current projections of global warming, the sea levels would rise by several meters. Sir King David, a former government chief scientist and founder of the Center for Climate Repair, CCR, at Cambridge University.
No wonder we can't get those Google search terms down.
Sir King David of CCR. There's so many
his
levels.
His first name is King.
I'm sorry,
Sir his last name
King.
is David.
It's David King, but whatever.
Oh, David King. Okay.
Close enough. Sir David King, a former government chief scientist and founder of the Center for Climate Repair, CCR, at Cambridge University, told Sky News that radical action is needed to save polar ice. Quote, "We are right there, right now," he said. Quote, "The idea is to buy time while we reduce greenhouse gas emissions deeply and rapidly. That's essential. If we keep on emitting at the current rate, we are cooked." Dr. Sean Fitzgerald. How much money do you think this guy makes saying stuff like this?
Enough.
Sir,
enough to keep saying it.
He's a sir. He's knighted he was knighted by the late Queen.
He ain't my knight.
Doctor, I know,
tell you that
not
much.
at the Canary Cry Roundtable. Dr. Sean Fitzgerald, the CCR's director. I don't like this. I don't like that they're using our acronym. Said the large number of flights could be justified if they dealt with the immediate problem of sea level rise. Quote, "Using aircraft is not nice at all, but the impact of those greenhouse gases is a longer-term effect. We are worried about the impacts of climate change right now. It's really urgent." I'm not seeing exclamation points, so that's probably a good sign. The CCR is working on a strategy in its labs to brighten clouds over the Arctic Ocean with a fleet of ships pumping seawater into the atmosphere. The clouds would reflect sunlight back into space, cooling ice in the region. The CCR supports a United Nations moratorium on attempting any form of geoengineering at scale until experiments have shown it is safe and there's agreement that there is a critical need to use it. And I gotta say, Basil, why CCR? Some uninformed individual could be like, "See, Canary Cry's work. They support the United Nations for geoengineering."
Yeah, I think they would have to be quite ignorant to do that, which I'm not saying they're not out there. I'm more concerned with Antarctic tourism. Look, we're trying to make Antarctica the utopia for white liberals to take vacations. And, kind of like the migrants to the Martha's Vineyard thing, which we didn't cover today. But it's like, hey, you can't make a point and benefit the white rich liberals. I don't know, but I don't think this is going to happen. Maybe try it in the north first. Antarctica's got too much to lose. You got to do some market testing, refreeze the Arctic, and if it works, see if they'll pay for it. Maybe the Antarctica Tourist Department will pay for it, because you do need to keep it frozen. I think frozen Antarctica is, that's the one that everybody wants to go to. It's got to seem like an adventure, baby.
Yeah, well, plus they got to keep stuff frozen because otherwise, all the Nephilim creatures start crawling out. This is going to be too obvious.
All the cryo-frozen Nazis will start waking up, and we don't want that.
I'm waiting for somebody to slip and be like, we have to tackle climate change at the poles now, or the Nazis are going to come.
They're going to come back.
And so a bunch of people will think that it's sort of, maybe something to do with the Russians or the Ukrainians or something like that, but or the white supremacists. But, it'll just be a Freudian slip revealing the realities of the creatures beneath our feet. So
I love it.
Anyway, there you go. I don't know.
This idea comes up every few years.
Yeah, well, Mr. Burns famous,
So a new discovery. Antarctica.
Wrong between the
here in the bottom of our planet.
Advanced
Antarctica. Climate crisis. Penguins.